If you've ever felt like you're no longer the person you used to be, you're not imagining it. Something inside you has shifted, quietly, profoundly. The things that once excited you now feel distant. The conversations that once lit up your world suddenly drain you, and sometimes you can't even explain why. Carl Jung believed that growth often begins as a kind of quiet death, the death of who you were before. It's the shedding of identities that no longer fit, the releasing of stories you once thought defined you. This process isn't loud or dramatic. It's subtle, unsettling, and deeply personal. You start feeling a strange distance between your old self and the person you're becoming. You begin to notice the quiet moments more, the silence between thoughts, the stillness after endings, the peace after storms. It's not that you've lost yourself. It's that you're meeting a truer version of who you've always been. Here are 5 signs you've outgrown your old self, even if you haven't realized it yet. Sign 1. Old surroundings no longer feel like home. One of the first signs that you've outgrown your old self is that familiar places no longer feel the same. The cafe where you once spent hours dreaming doesn't hold that spark anymore. The people, the habits, the patterns, everything that once felt safe now feels small. It's not arrogance. It's not detachment. It's evolution. You've expanded internally, and the world around you hasn't caught up yet. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But that privilege comes with a cost, the cost of outgrowing comfort. You begin to realize that growth often requires walking away, not because you no longer care, but because you've changed frequencies. You see it in conversations that feel repetitive, in routines that once defined you but now feel restrictive. You might even feel guilty for wanting more meaning, more silence, more truth. But this is the soul's way of calling you home, not to a place, but to yourself. The old self clings to what's familiar. The new self longs for what's real. And that's where the shift begins. When you stop trying to fit into spaces that no longer fit the person you've become. At first, it's lonely. You'll look around and realize that you don't quite belong where you used to. But over time, you'll understand that loneliness was never emptiness. It was space being made for something new. You're not losing your old life. You're simply stepping into a larger version of it, one that can finally hold the person you were meant to be all along. Sign 2. You crave solitude, not attention. There comes a point in your growth when silence begins to sound more honest than words. When you no longer chase noise, validation, or approval, because you've finally made peace with your own company. At first, people might mistake your quietness for sadness. But the truth is, solitude has become your sanctuary. The same space that once felt empty now feels sacred. It's where your thoughts breathe, where your emotions untangle, and where your soul begins to whisper truths the world is too loud to hear. Carl Jung believed that the individual must eventually separate from the collective to truly know the self. And that separation, that retreat into solitude, is not withdrawal. It's transformation. You stop performing. You stop explaining. You stop needing to be understood. Because you finally understand yourself. There was a time when silence scared you. It made you restless, as if something was missing. But now, silence feels like oxygen. You start realizing that you don't need constant noise to feel alive. You just need presence. You stop reaching for your phone every few minutes. You stop trying to fill every second with distraction. You stop trying to prove your worth through productivity or praise. And suddenly, solitude becomes your mirror. It reflects what you've been avoiding, your fears, your wounds, your patterns, but also your strength. Because in that stillness, you start hearing the parts of yourself that used to be silenced by the world's demands. This is where self-trust is born. Not in the noise of validation, but in the quiet, knowing that your peace is enough. The old self needed attention to feel real. The new self finds peace in authenticity. It's a kind of freedom that can't be faked. You no longer crave to be seen. You crave to be understood. You no longer chase connection. You choose it intentionally. And even when you're alone, you don't feel lonely, because solitude is no longer a void. It's your home. There's a deep calm in this stage, a peace that doesn't depend on who texts you, who notices you, or who praises you. It's a peace that grows quietly, like light filling a dark room. You've outgrown the need to be everywhere, to please everyone, to prove anything. You'd rather sit in silence and feel whole than drown in noise just to feel seen. This is not the end of your social life. It's the beginning of your inner one. And from this place of quiet, something profound begins to awaken. Your connection to your own soul. Sign 3. You confront your shadow instead of escaping. Healing isn't about becoming perfect. It's about facing what you once ran from. The parts of you that made you uncomfortable, ashamed, or afraid. The shadow, as Jung called it, is the side of the psyche we try to hide. It's made of everything we reject in ourselves. Our anger, envy, insecurity, pain, guilt. But true healing begins the moment you stop denying that darkness and start listening to what it's been trying to say. There comes a time when pretending no longer works. You start noticing how your triggers are not enemies. They are messengers. How your emotional reactions are not flaws. They are teachers. And how every shadow that appears is not a punishment, but a mirror. You begin to see that you cannot heal what you keep buried. And so you turn inward, not to destroy the darkness, but to understand it. You start asking deeper questions. Why does this still hurt? What is this emotion trying to teach me? What part of me have I refused to love? At first, it's uncomfortable, because shadow work isn't pretty, it's raw. You face memories you wanted to forget, emotions you tried to suppress, versions of yourself you once hated. But as you keep facing them, something shifts. You begin to see the beauty in your brokenness. You begin to realize that your darkness was never your enemy. It was your unhealed self asking for light. Carl Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And when you do that, when you dare to meet the shadow face to face, you discover that it was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to awaken you. The anger you once judged in yourself becomes your boundary. The sadness you tried to numb becomes your empathy. The fear that held you back becomes your awareness. Slowly, you stop hiding behind perfection. You no longer chase the illusion of being fixed, because you realize you were never broken. You were just split between the parts you showed the world and the parts you silenced within. And when you bring those parts together, you feel whole again. That's the essence of healing. Not to erase your shadow, but to walk hand in hand with it. You begin to live more authentically. You stop apologizing for your depth, for your emotions, for your truth. You stop wearing masks to be accepted, because you understand now, real strength is not in hiding your wounds, it's in owning them. And in doing so, you stop being controlled by what you once feared. The shadow loses power the moment you face it with love. It becomes your ally, your reminder that even in darkness, you are never unworthy of light. Sign 4. You no longer react, you respond with awareness. There comes a moment on every healing journey when silence becomes your greatest strength. You stop needing to prove your worth. You stop trying to explain your peace. And instead of reacting to every storm, you begin to observe it. Before, everything used to trigger you. Someone's tone, someone's silence, someone's misunderstanding. You would defend, explain, fight, or run. You would feel pulled into chaos because chaos was familiar. But now, something in you has changed. You've slowed down. You've learned to pause. And in that pause, you've found something sacred. Awareness. This is what Jung called individuation. The moment the unconscious becomes conscious. When you no longer act out old wounds on autopilot. When you no longer give power to the patterns that used to control you. You start to notice, this isn't about them. This is about what's being stirred inside me. You stop taking everything personally. You stop expecting others to heal you. And you realize that peace isn't found in controlling life. It's found in mastering your own reaction to it. You begin to choose stillness over chaos. You begin to choose understanding over judgment. You begin to choose response over reaction. When someone tries to pull you into an argument, you no longer take the bait. When someone projects their pain onto you, you no longer absorb it as truth, because now you can see their behavior through the lens of compassion, not ego. You realize hurt people, and healed people don't need to prove that they're right. You start valuing your inner calm more than being understood. You start protecting your peace more than proving your point. And that shift, that quiet power, is proof that you've outgrown your old self. Jung once wrote that everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. That's what awareness does. It turns conflict into clarity. Every trigger becomes a teacher. Every moment of discomfort becomes an invitation to grow, and slowly, your life becomes less about controlling outcomes and more about observing them. You begin to trust that the universe doesn't need your panic. It needs your patience, because the person who has mastered their inner world is no longer at the mercy of the outer one. You've learned that peace doesn't come when life is perfect. It comes when you stop letting imperfection disturb you. You've realized that reacting is easy, but responding, that's evolution. So now you move slower. You speak softer. You listen deeper. And when people ask what changed, you simply say, I no longer need to fight everything that doesn't align with my soul. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. And that wisdom is the unmistakable sign that you've outgrown who you used to be. Sign 5. You're at peace with not knowing what's next. Once upon a time, uncertainty terrified you. You needed a plan, a path, a promise. You wanted every door labeled, every outcome guaranteed, because deep down, you didn't trust life or yourself. But now, you've begun to understand something profound. Life was never meant to be controlled. It was meant to be experienced. You've stopped trying to predict the future and started learning how to be present in it. You've stopped rushing for answers and started finding meaning in the questions. And that shift, that surrender, is one of the clearest signs you've outgrown your old self. You no longer see uncertainty as punishment. You see it as potential. You no longer see endings as loss. You see them as redirection. Because somewhere in your healing, you learn to trust the unseen, the quiet unfolding of your own becoming. Carl Jung once wrote, "Your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens." That awakening happens when you stop running from the unknown and start walking with it, slowly, humbly, without needing to know where it's taking you. You start to sense that everything, every delay, every silence, every detour is part of a larger intelligence guiding you home to yourself. You stop forcing and you begin flowing. You stop chasing and you begin aligning. This doesn't mean you no longer have goals. It means your peace no longer depends on when they happen. You trust timing more than tension. You trust alignment more than effort. The old version of you would panic when life felt still. The healed version of you understands that stillness is movement, the quiet kind, the kind that prepares you for something you can't yet see. You begin to find beauty in the in-between, the space between what's gone and what's coming. You stop trying to fill every silence, fix every pause, or force every answer. You let life breathe. You let your soul rest. And you realize peace is not found in certainty, it's found in surrender. The truth is, growth is not about reaching some final destination. It's about learning to dance with the unknown, with grace. And when you can finally say, "I don't know what's next, but I trust myself," that's when you know you've truly healed. Because the soul that trusts life is free. It doesn't fear endings. It doesn't chase control. It simply walks, one step at a time, knowing that what is meant for it will never require it to beg, to hurry, or to shrink. You no longer live in survival. You live in surrender. You no longer seek the light outside. You've become it. And the moment you realize that peace isn't somewhere you go, it's something you are, you'll understand that you've already crossed the bridge between who you were and who you were always meant to be. You've outgrown your old self the moment you stop fearing the silence. The moment you start trusting that the universe works through pauses, not pressure. Healing doesn't always look like happiness. Sometimes it looks like calm, still, silent peace. And that peace is not the end of your journey. It's the beginning of your real life.